stood in the massive assembly hall of the Galactic Institute of War Arts, her neck craned upward to take in the impossible height of the ceiling. Around her, students from dozens of different worlds filled the space with colors, shapes, and sounds she was still learning to recognize. Some floated. Some towered 3 meters tall. Others were so small they needed special platforms just to see over the desks. She was human. Average height, average build, average everything by the standards of her own species. Here, surrounded by beings that could crush stone with their bare hands or see through walls or survive in the vacuum of space, she felt very small indeed. "Attention!" the voice boomed through the hall, translated instantly into 47 different languages by the neural implants every student wore. Master strode to the center of the room, his 4 arms crossed over his broad chest. He was one of the warrior species that had founded the Institute 300 years ago. His skin had the texture of old leather, dark green, and from centuries of combat. The hall fell silent. Even the floating, who were basically clouds of sentient gas, stopped their constant swirling and settled into stillness. "You have survived your first year," Master said. His lower arms gestured to the students while his upper arms remained crossed. "You have learned the basic combat forms of 15 different species. You have studied weapons both primitive and advanced. You have faced opponents stronger, faster, and more skilled than yourselves." He paused, his large eyes scanning the crowd, felt his gaze pass over her briefly. She was one of only 3 humans in the entire class of 47. "Now comes your final examination," Master continued. "Each of you will forge a blade using the traditional methods of You will present this blade to the council in 3 months' time. You will demonstrate its effectiveness in the arena. This blade will be judged not just on its sharpness or strength, but on the craftsmanship, the understanding of your people's warrior traditions, and its performance in combat." Excited murmurs rippled through the hall, glanced to her left where sat. He was human too, a tall young man from the eastern territories of Earth. His face showed the same nervous excitement she felt. On her right, leaned forward in her seat, her eyes bright. She was the 3rd human, small and fierce, always ready for a challenge. "You will each submit your material requirements by tomorrow," Master announced. "The forges will be prepared according to your needs. You may use any traditional technique from your species' history. Modern tools are permitted only if they replicate ancient methods. This is not about technology. This is about understanding the soul of your people's weapons." The dismissal came soon after. Students flooded out of the hall, already talking excitedly about their plans, walked with and toward the residence halls. "I'm going to forge a katana," said. "My grandfather taught me some of the old techniques before I left Earth. Folding the steel, the proper temperatures, the edge geometry. I'm thinking, added, European style. I've been reading about pattern welding and differential hardening. It's going to be beautiful." They both looked at expectantly. She bit her lip, considering. She had been thinking about this moment since she first heard about the blade forging tradition at the Institute. Everyone expected humans to bring steel. It was what Earth was known for in the wider galaxy. Humans and their endless variations of iron and carbon, shaped by fire. But had been researching something else. "I need to check something first," she said. "I'll tell you tomorrow." That night sat in the Institute's vast digital library, scrolling through files on xenobiology. She had been studying this particular creature for weeks, ever since she learned about the final exam. A massive predator that lived in the cold void between stars, drifting through space like a whale through water. They were nearly impossible to kill. Weapons bounced off their hide. Energy blasts were absorbed and dispersed. They regenerated from wounds that would destroy a ship. A military expedition had killed one 3 years ago. It had taken 6 warships and a coordinated strike that exhausted their combined arsenals. Samples of the creature had been distributed to research facilities across the galaxy. The Institute had received several, stored in their xenobiology department for study. read through the analysis reports. This flesh was unlike anything else in the known universe. The muscle fibers were denser than most metals. The cellular structure was reinforced at the molecular level. Most interesting of all, the flesh changed its properties when exposed to certain stimuli. It could be soft and flexible, or harder than diamond, depending on the energy patterns around it. She made her decision. The next morning, students lined up at the forging halls to submit their material requests, watched as her classmates asked for incredible things. The students requisitioned crystal cores that sang with harmonic frequencies. The best fighter in the class requested star iron, a metal forged in the heart of a dying sun. They asked for living metal that responded to thought. The needed specialized containment fields to work with their chosen materials. When reached the front of the line, Master looked down at her with his large, patient eyes. "What materials do you require, student?" "I need access to the biolabs," she said clearly, "and I need a sample of tissue from the xenobiology storage." The hall went quiet. Students who had been chatting fell silent. Master's forearms uncrossed slowly. "Explain," he said. Took a breath. "My species didn't reach the top of Earth's food chain by being the strongest or the fastest," she said. "We got there by being creative, by using what others thought was useless, by seeing potential where others saw only problems." "You want to forge a blade from meat?" His voice cut through the silence. Laughter followed his words. "The human thinks she can sharpen flesh." Turned to face him. Stood 2 meters tall, his forearms thick with muscle, his face showing clear amusement. Around him, other students were grinning. "Yes," said simply. She looked back at Master. "I request permission to attempt this method." Master studied her for a long moment. His expression was unreadable. Finally, he nodded once. "Permission granted. I will observe your progress with interest." Bowed and stepped aside. Behind her, she could hear the whispers starting. The human was crazy. The human was going to fail. The human thought she could make a weapon from monster flesh. Caught up with her outside. "Are you serious?" he asked. "That's insane." "Maybe," admitted. She thought about her grandmother, who had raised her on a frontier colony where resources were scarce and creativity meant survival. But it might also be brilliant. Shook her head but smiled slightly. "Well, at least you'll be memorable, either as a genius or as the student who tried to sharpen meat." Smiled back. She had 3 months to prove which one she would be. The real work was about to begin. The biolab was cold and sterile, lit by harsh white lights that made everything look pale and lifeless. Stood before a sealed containment unit, staring at the sample of flesh inside. It was about the size of her forearm, dark purple-gray in color, with a texture that seemed to shift when she moved her head. The sample had been dead for 3 years, frozen in stasis, yet something about it still seemed alive. She pressed her hand against the containment glass. Through the transparent material, she could see the complex structure of the flesh, the way the muscle fibers wove together in patterns that seemed almost geometric. This was what she had to work with. This was her material. "Beginning analysis," she said to the lab's computer system. The machines around her hummed to life. Across the institute, in the traditional forging halls, her classmates were already at work. Could imagine the scene. Would be heating his steel to precise temperatures, folding it over and over to create layers. Would be carefully welding her blade's core and edge together. The alien students would be using their own methods, each one proven over centuries or of tradition. And was here, in a lab that smelled of antiseptic, trying to turn dead monster flesh into a weapon. The first week was spent entirely on analysis. She studied the cellular structure under microscopes. She ran chemical tests. She exposed tiny samples to different forms of energy and watched how they reacted. The flesh was extraordinary. The density was impossible. She calculated that a cubic centimeter weighed more than most solid metals, yet it had been flexible enough in life to allow the creature to move. The real discovery came on the 8th day. She was running electromagnetic frequency tests when something remarkable happened. As she increased the frequency, the flesh sample suddenly became rigid, not just stiff, but hard as stone. When she decreased the frequency, it softened again. "That's it," she whispered to the empty lab. "That's how I'll forge it." But understanding the material was only the first step. She still had to shape it into a blade. Meanwhile, rumors spread through the institute like fire. In the cafeteria, students from a dozen species gathered to discuss the crazy human who thought she could sharpen meat. Heard the whispers even when people tried to be quiet. Her neural implant translated everything. "I heard she's trying to cook the flesh into shape," one student said, their crystalline body refracting light as they laughed. "Maybe she'll just take a bite out of it and call that an edge," another replied. Even worse were the public comments. "Made sure to find her regularly, usually when other students were around." 3 weeks into the project, he cornered her in the main corridor with his friends watching. "How's your meat sword coming along?" he asked, all four arms crossed in a posture that managed to be both casual and threatening. "Should we bring seasoning to the demonstration? Maybe some sauce?" His friends laughed. A crowd was gathering. Felt her face grow hot, but she kept her voice steady. "It's progressing well, thank you." Progressing well, stepped closer. He was huge compared to her, his shadow falling across her like a wall. "You know what I think? I think you're going to stand in that arena with a piece of rotten flesh and embarrass not just yourself, but your entire species. Maybe humans don't belong at the Institute after all." Back off appeared at side and was right behind him. Both looked angry. Laughed and walked away, but his voice carried back. 3 months of work for a joke. What a waste. That night found in the biolab working late as usual. "You don't have to do this," said quietly. "No one would blame you if you switched to a normal blade. You could still forge good steel. You're smart enough." Looked up from her work. The sample was suspended in a solution she had created, a mixture of enzymes and catalysts that were slowly breaking down and restructuring the flesh at the molecular level. "My grandmother used to tell me a story," she said, "about the first humans who looked at wild wolves, dangerous predators with teeth like knives, and thought, 'I can make that into a friend.' Everyone else thought they were crazy too." And asked, "And now we have dogs, because someone was willing to try something everyone else thought was impossible." Turned back to her work. "I'm not giving up." The second month was the hardest. Barely slept. She worked in the biolab from before dawn until long after midnight, running test after test, trying different treatments and techniques. She combined methods from ancient Earth leatherworking with advanced biochemistry. She studied how human ancestors had treated animal hides to make them tough and flexible, then adapted those principles using modern understanding of molecular structures. The flesh was changing, slowly, incredibly slowly, but it was changing. The enzyme baths were restructuring the proteins. The electromagnetic treatments were aligning the muscle fibers into new patterns. She had to be careful. Too much treatment and the flesh would break down completely. Too little and it would never harden properly. Master visited her lab twice during this time. He never said much, just watched her work with those large, unreadable eyes. On his second visit, he finally spoke. "I have trained warriors for 300 years, he said. "I have seen every traditional forging method in the galaxy. I have never seen anyone attempt what you are attempting." "Is that a compliment or a criticism?" asked, not looking up from her work. "I am not certain yet," Master replied. "But I will say this. Your focus reminds me of the ancient weaponsmiths of my own people. They too worked with materials that seemed impossible. Perhaps you have the spirit of a true craftsman." He left and felt a small spark of hope. With 3 weeks remaining, finally began to shape the blade. The flesh had been transformed. It was still organic, still technically alive in some sense, but it had been restructured into something new. She used specialized tools to cut and shape it, careful to maintain the pattern she had created in the muscle fibers. The blade began to take form. 60 centimeters long, slightly curved, with a subtle taper to the edge. It was beautiful in a strange, organic way. The surface had a texture like fine wood grain, swirling patterns visible beneath the surface. In certain light, it seemed to glow faintly. She could see the layered structure within, like looking into deep water. But was it strong enough? Was it sharp enough? Would it actually work as a weapon? Didn't know. She ran private tests cutting through materials in the lab. The blade performed well, better than she had hoped, but not spectacularly. It cut. It held an edge, but it didn't seem special. It didn't seem like anything that would prove and all the others wrong. With 1 week left, doubt crept in. Maybe they were right. Maybe she had wasted 3 months on an elaborate failure. Maybe she should have just forged steel like everyone expected. Found her in the lab that night, staring at the blade she had created. Was a being of organized gas that communicated through controlled vibrations. They had never spoken much before. "It's beautiful," said, their form shifting to create the words. "It might not be enough," admitted. "Perhaps," said, "but you tried something no one else dared to try. That takes courage. Whatever happens in the arena, you've already proven something important." "What's that?" asked. "That humans don't think like the rest of us, and maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needs." Looked at her blade again. In 7 days she would stand in the arena. In 7 days the entire institute would watch her succeed or fail. There was no more time for doubt, no more time for adjustments. The blade was finished. Now she just had to prove it worked. The grand arena was packed. Had never seen so many beings in one place. The circular space could hold 3,000 spectators, and every seat was filled. Students from every year had come to watch. Faculty members lined the upper galleries. Even military observers from various governments had arrived, interested in seeing what the next generation of warriors had created. Sat in the preparation area with the other students who would present today. Her hands were steady as she held the wrapped bundle containing her blade. Around her, she could feel the nervous energy of her classmates. Some paced, others meditated. Sat perfectly still, radiating confidence, his star-iron blade resting across his lap like a sleeping predator. "First presentation," the announcer called. "Student of the—" A crystalline being floated to the center of the arena. Their blade was a thing of impossible beauty, a crystal that sang when it moved, refracting light into rainbow patterns. Demonstrated its cutting power by slicing through a block of reinforced metal like it was soft clay. The crowd erupted in applause. Master and the other judges made notes, their faces showing approval. One by one, students presented their work. Each blade was impressive in its own way. The student's living metal blade that shifted shape to match different fighting styles. The blades of folded star iron that glowed with trapped heat. Each demonstration brought cheers and appreciation. Then's name was called. Watched her friend walk to the center of the arena. He moved with grace, his katana held properly in both hands. The blade was beautiful, the folded steel showing the wave pattern that marked quality craftsmanship. He performed the traditional tests, cutting through bamboo and rope and steel. Each cut was clean and perfect. The crowd applauded warmly. Even the judges nodded with respect. It was solid work, traditional and well executed. Went next. Her gleamed under the arena lights, the pattern-welded steel showing intricate designs along the blade. She demonstrated its balance by performing a complex series of movements, then showed its strength by striking an anvil without chipping the edge. More applause, more approval from the judges. Student of the announcer called. The crowd's energy changed. Everyone knew was the class champion. He strode to the center with all 4 arms swinging, his star-iron blade held high. The blade itself seemed to drink in light, dark, and hungry. He didn't waste time with simple demonstrations. Instead, he called for the hardest tests. They brought out battle-grade armor, the kind used by military forces across the galaxy. His blade cut through it like paper. They brought out reinforced alloy, materials designed to withstand ship weapons. His blade carved through without slowing. For his final demonstration, he requested combat against 3 automated drones simultaneously. He destroyed all 3 in less than a minute. The arena shook with cheers. Even had to admit it was impressive, was skilled, and his blade was magnificent. He returned to the preparation area with a smile that said he knew he had won. "Student of Earth," the announcer called. The cheering died down to whispers. Stood, her wrapped blade in hand, and walked to the center of the arena. She could feel thousands of eyes on her. She could hear the murmurs starting. "Is that the one with the meat sword? I can't believe she actually went through with it. This should be entertaining." Master stood at the judge's table, his 4 arms crossed. His expression was neutral, but she thought she saw interest in his eyes. She reached the center of the arena and unwrapped her blade. The whispers grew louder. Her blade looked nothing like the traditional weapons the other students had presented. It was organic, flowing, with that strange translucent quality that showed the layered structure within. Under the bright arena lights, the swirling patterns in the flesh seemed to move. "That's not a blade," someone called out. "That's a piece of jerky." Laughter rippled through the crowd, kept her face calm but her heart pounded. This was the moment. Everything depended on what happened next. "Begin standard testing," Master commanded. They brought out the materials. Wood, metal, stone, crystal. One by one cut through them. Her blade worked. It cut cleanly, held its edge, performed the basic functions. But it wasn't spectacular. It didn't slice through battle armor like blade had. It didn't sing like the crystal weapons. It was just adequate. The crowd's interest was fading. Some people were already standing to leave, assuming the demonstration was over and unimpressive. Even the judges looked disappointed. Could see, and in the preparation area, their faces showing concern. "Is that all?" His voice cut through the murmurs. 3 months of work for an average blade made from meat. Pathetic. Master raised one hand for silence. "Student, do you have anything else to demonstrate?" This was it, the moment she had been planning for. "Yes, Master," said clearly. "I request a different test." "Speaker." The previous demonstrations tested cutting power and durability against static materials, said. But a blade's true purpose is combat. I request to face a living target. A combat drone set to maximum aggression, equipped with energy weapons. The arena went silent. That was a dangerous test, one that required skill and confidence. Students had been injured attempting such demonstrations. Master studied her carefully. "The drone will use plasma-edged weapons," he warned. "They will destroy conventional blades on contact. Are you certain?" "I'm certain," replied. Master nodded. "Bring the combat drone." The machine that emerged from the arena floor was terrifying. 2 meters tall, armed with plasma blades that glowed white-hot, moving with perfect mechanical precision. It had no fear, no hesitation. It was programmed to attack and destroy. "Begin," Master commanded. The drone moved faster than expected. It closed the distance in a heartbeat, its plasma blades cutting through the air toward her. She barely managed to raise her own blade to block. The crowd gasped. Everyone expected one of 2 things. Either would dodge, trying to avoid the plasma edges entirely, or her blade would be destroyed on contact. Neither happened. Her blade met the plasma edge directly. There should have been the sound of sizzling, the smell of burning organic matter, the sight of her weapon being cut in half. Instead, the plasma slid along her blade's surface like water off glass. The blade didn't burn. It didn't melt. It didn't even get warm. The arena fell silent. The drone pressed its attack, both plasma blades now swinging in coordinated patterns. Blocked in, her blade meeting the plasma edges again and again. Each time, the plasma simply flowed around her weapon, unable to damage it. The crowd was standing now, everyone trying to see better. Saw her opening. The drone overextended on a downward strike. She stepped inside its guard and swung her blade horizontally. The organic weapon passed through the drone's energy shielding like it wasn't there. It cut through the armored body. It sliced through the power core. The drone collapsed in two pieces. Sparks flew from the severed halves. Stood in the center of the arena, her blade held steady, not a mark on it from the plasma weapons it had just fought. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The silence stretched for 3 full heartbeats. Then the arena erupted. People were shouting, jumping to their feet, pointing at the blade in his hand. The judges were leaning forward, talking rapidly to each other. Master stood, all 4 arms uncrossed, his expression showing something had never seen before. Amazement. Walked back to the preparation area through a storm of noise. Students were calling questions at her, but she couldn't make out individual words through the chaos. She found and both staring at her with wide eyes. "What just happened?" asked. "How did it not melt?" added. Looked down at her blade. It was unchanged, unmarked, exactly as it had been before the fight. She smiled. That's what happens when you work with life instead of trying to beat matter into submission. Stood nearby, his face unreadable. For once he said nothing. Master's voice cut through the chaos. "This presentation session is concluded. Student, report to the faculty council immediately. We have questions." The faculty council chamber was intimidating. 12 of the institute's most senior instructors sat in a semicircle, representing 12 different species. Master sat at the center. Behind them, large screens showed recordings of arena demonstration, frozen at the moment her blade had passed through the drone's plasma edge without damage. Stood in the middle of the chamber, her blade resting on a table beside her. Around the edges of the room, she could see military observers in formal uniforms, their faces serious. Whatever was about to happen would have consequences beyond just her final grade. "Student," Master began, "we have reviewed your demonstration. What you showed us today contradicts our understanding of material science. Organic matter should not survive contact with plasma weapons. It should not cut through military-grade shielding. Explain how your blade functions." Took a deep breath. This was the moment she had prepared for. "They are space predators," she began. "They evolved in one of the harshest environments imaginable. Hard vacuum, cosmic radiation, extreme temperatures. They needed flesh that could survive anything." She gestured to her blade. "Their muscle fibers are denser than most metals, arranged in quantum-locked patterns. But the real secret is their adaptability. The flesh changes its properties based on environmental conditions. It hardens when stressed, softens when relaxed. It absorbs and disperses energy at the molecular level." One of the council members, unnamed, spoke through vibrations. "But the creature is dead. How does dead tissue maintain these properties?" "That's what took me 3 months to figure out," said. "I used enzyme baths and bioelectric treatments to restructure the tissue while preserving its fundamental properties. I essentially the flesh at the cellular level, locking it into a state where it maintains its adaptive capabilities even without life." Another instructor, a named Crystalline Dawn, chimed in. "This explains the durability, but the plasma weapons should have generated enough heat to destroy organic bonds. Nothing organic can survive sustained plasma contact." "They didn't survive in space by being tough," explained. "They survived by being efficient. Their flesh doesn't try to resist thermal energy. It absorbs it and redistributes it throughout the molecular structure so quickly that no single point reaches damaging temperatures. When plasma touches my blade, the heat spreads through the entire weapon in microseconds, then dissipates. The blade never gets hot enough to burn." Master leaned forward, and the shielding penetration. "Energy shields work by creating a field that deflects or absorbs incoming force," said. "They're designed to stop metals, crystals, plasma, anything with a stable molecular structure. But my blade structure is constantly shifting at the quantum level. adapting to whatever it encounters. The shields can't lock onto it. It's like trying to block water. The blade just flows through. Silence filled the chamber as the council absorbed this information. Then one of the military observers stood. He was human, an officer from Earth's expeditionary forces. "Student, are you aware of the military applications of this technology?" "Yes, sir," replied. "Can the process be replicated? Can we produce more of these blades?" "In theory, yes, but it requires tissue, which is extremely rare. It also takes months of careful work. This isn't something that can be mass-produced." The officer nodded and sat down, but could see him making notes. Other military observers were doing the same. She had created something valuable, something that governments would want. Master stood and the room fell silent again. "In my 300 years as an instructor, I have never seen work like this. You did not simply forge a blade. You created something entirely new. You combined ancient techniques with modern science, biology with metallurgy, life with toolcraft." He paused. "The council awards you the highest marks in Institute history." Felt her knees go weak with relief. She had done it. She had actually done it. But Master wasn't finished. "However, there is a complication. Student has filed a formal challenge." The relief vanished. "A challenge?" "He claims your method does not constitute true forging, that you cheated by using biology instead of traditional weaponsmithing. He has invoked the ancient right of trial by combat. He challenges you to a formal arena duel, blade against blade, to prove which method is superior." His mind raced. A formal challenge meant serious combat, not a demonstration, not a test, a real fight with real consequences. "What happens if I refuse?" "Your marks will stand," Master said, "but the challenge to your honor will also stand. Many will see refusal as an admission that your blade succeeded through luck rather than true craftsmanship." "And if I accept?" "First blood or yield," Master explained. "Lethal force is prohibited, but serious injury is permitted. The winner's method is recognized as valid. The loser," he paused, "the loser may continue their studies but will carry the mark of defeat." It wasn't a real choice. If she refused, she would always be seen as someone who got lucky, who couldn't back up her innovation with skill. "I accept the challenge." Master nodded slowly. "The duel will take place in 1 month. Use the time to prepare." The council dismissed her. As left the chamber, she was immediately surrounded by students. Some wanted to congratulate her. Others wanted to examine her blade. Many just wanted to be near someone who had done something impossible. Found her in the crowd. "That was brave," they said, "accepting's challenge." "I didn't have much choice," replied. "You always have a choice. You chose to fight for what you created. That matters." Over the next few days, became something of a celebrity at the Institute. Students stopped her in hallways to ask about her blade. Instructors from other departments requested interviews. The story spread beyond the school. News services across the galaxy picked up the tale of the human who had sharpened flesh into a weapon. Not everyone was pleased. A group of students, mostly traditionalists who followed, made their disapproval clear. They argued loudly in the cafeteria that had violated the spirit of the assignment. They claimed that using biology was cheating, that true weaponsmithing required working with inanimate materials. One evening, found graffiti sprayed on her dorm room door. "Meet Sharpener" in bright red letters. She stared at it for a long moment, then smiled. Her grandmother would have loved that title. And became her training partners. Every day, they worked together in the practice halls, taught her the flowing movements of traditional sword arts from Earth, drilled her on European fencing techniques, adapted what they taught to work with her unique blade, learning its balance, its reach, its feel. Master appeared during one training session. He watched in silence for several minutes, then approached. "Your blade is remarkable," he said, "but is the best fighter in your class. Skill matters more than equipment." I know, said. Do you? Master's large eyes studied her. You created something new. That took brilliance. But maintaining that creation, defending it, proving it worthy, that takes something different. That takes warrior spirit. My grandmother used to say that humans are stubborn, replied. We don't quit just because something is hard. Master made a sound that might have been a laugh. Good. You will need that stubbornness. Fights with 4 arms and 2 centuries of combat tradition bred into his bones. He is strong, fast, and angry. He sees your success as an insult to traditional methods. Then I'll have to show him that new methods can honor the old ones, said. As the month passed, discovered something unexpected about her blade. One morning she noticed small scratches on its surface from the previous day's training. By that evening, the scratches were gone. She tested it deliberately, making a shallow cut in the blade's edge, then leaving it overnight in a nutrient solution she had created. The next day, the damage had healed. The blade was alive in its own way, still growing, still adapting. She didn't tell anyone about this discovery. Some advantages were better kept secret. The night before the duel, sat alone in her room holding her blade. She thought about the past 3 months, the mockery, the doubt, the countless hours in the lab, the moment in the arena when everything had worked. Tomorrow she would face. Tomorrow she would prove once and for all that human creativity was just as valid as any traditional method. Tomorrow she would show the galaxy what happened when someone refused to accept that anything was impossible. She closed her eyes and slept, the blade resting beside her bed, waiting for the morning. The grand arena was even more crowded than it had been for the demonstrations. News of the formal challenge had spread across the institute and beyond. Could see reporters from several news services in the upper galleries, their recording equipment pointed at the arena floor. This wasn't just a school event anymore. This was a spectacle. Stood in the preparation chamber, checking her equipment one final time. The blade rested in her hands, familiar now after a month of constant training. She wore light armor, the standard protection allowed in formal duels. Across the arena, in a separate chamber, would be doing the same. And stood beside her. They had been there every day of her training, helping her prepare for this moment. Remember, said, we'll try to overwhelm you early. 4 arms means he can attack and defend simultaneously. Don't try to match his strength. Use your mobility, added. You're smaller and faster, make him work for every strike. Nodded. She had heard this advice 100 times, but it helped to hear it again now. Thank you, both of you, for everything. Don't thank us yet, said with a slight smile. Win first, then you can buy us dinner. The announcement echoed through the arena. Combatants enter. Walk through the tunnel into the bright light of the arena. The crowd's noise hit her like a physical force. Thousands of beings from dozens of species, all here to watch her fight. She saw Master and the faculty council in their seats. She saw military observers taking notes. She saw her fellow students, some cheering, others silent. Emerged from the opposite tunnel. He wore traditional battle armor, dark and segmented to allow his 4 arms full movement. His star-iron blade caught the light, looking hungry and dangerous. He was huge, easily twice her mass, moving with the confidence of someone who had never lost a formal duel. They met in the center of the arena. Master stood between them, his own 4 arms raised for silence. The crowd quieted. This is a formal challenge under Institute law, Master announced. The rules are simple: first blood or yield. Lethal force is prohibited. Deliberate maiming is prohibited. The duel ends when one combatant yields or when clear blood is drawn. The judge's decision is final. He looked at each of them in turn. Do you both understand and accept these terms? I accept, said. I accept, replied. His voice was calm, controlled, but could see the anger in his eyes. He wasn't just here to win. He was here to humiliate her. Master stepped back. Take your positions. and moved to opposite sides of the marked circle, their blades ready. The arena fell silent. Every eye was on them. Every breath was held. Begin. Moved first, faster than expected for someone his size. He closed the distance in 3 powerful strides, all 4 arms bringing his blade around in a sweeping arc designed to end the fight immediately. It was a classic opening, meant to overwhelm the opponent before they could establish their defense. Didn't try to block. She dropped low and rolled to the side, feeling the star iron blade pass through the air where she had been standing. The crowd gasped. His blade struck the arena floor, sending sparks flying. Came up on his left side and struck at his lower arm, the one extended from his failed strike. He blocked with his upper left arm, 2-armed defense against her single blade. The organic weapon met star iron with a clear ringing sound. Neither blade gave way. They separated, circling. The expression showed surprise. He had expected her to be overwhelmed by his first attack. Instead, she was still standing, still ready. "You're faster than I thought," admitted, "but speed won't be enough." He attacked again, but this time with more control. His 4 arms worked in coordination, 2 attacking high while 2 defended low, creating patterns that were nearly impossible to penetrate. Was forced to give ground, parrying frantically, using her blade to deflect rather than block directly. Each impact sent vibrations through her arms. The crowd was roaring now, caught up in the intensity of the fight. Could hear individual voices cheering for her, for both. But she couldn't afford to listen. All her focus had to be on his 4 arms, trying to read the pattern, find the weakness. There she saw it. In the complex dance of his 4-armed style, there was a moment, barely a fraction of a second, when his lower right side was exposed. It happened every 5th strike, part of the pattern bred into combat forms over generations. Waited, counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She didn't go for the opening. Not yet. She needed to commit fully to believe his pattern was working. She let him drive her back further, let him think he was winning. Increased his speed, sensing victory. His blade moved faster, his attacks more aggressive. The crowd was chanting his name. Could see the triumph in his eyes. He thought he had her. She counted again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. This time didn't retreat. Instead, she did something unexpected. Something humans had been doing for thousands of years. Something that had confused and defeated predators far more powerful than them. She went low. Not to the side, not backward, but forward and down, dropping beneath swinging blade. She slid across the arena floor, moving under his 4 arms, inside his guard where his long reach became a disadvantage. Tried to adjust, but momentum had already committed him to his strike. His blade swung through empty air above his head. For one perfect moment, his entire lower right side was exposed. Struck, her blade came up in a precise arc, aimed at the gap in his armor just above his lower right hip. The organic weapon, flexible and sharp, found the opening and cut. Not deep, not dangerous, but enough. Red blood appeared on side. "First blood," Master's voice rang out. "The duel is concluded, victory to student." The arena erupted. Half the crowd was cheering wildly. The other half was stunned into silence. Stood slowly, her blade lowered, breathing hard. Stared down at his side, at the thin line of blood, as if he couldn't believe what had happened. Master and medical staff rushed onto the arena floor. They checked his wound. It was superficial, barely more than a scratch, but rules were rules. First blood meant the fight was over. Waved away the medical staff. He looked at, his expression complex. Anger, yes, but also something else. Respect, perhaps. He walked toward her, and for a moment thought he might attack anyway, rules be damned. Instead, he stopped in front of her and bowed. All 4 arms crossed over his chest in the traditional gesture of acknowledgement. "You fought well," he said. "I underestimated you. I underestimated your method. I was wrong." Bowed back as much as her exhaustion would allow. You're an incredible fighter. I only won because I did something you didn't expect. That's the point, isn't it? Said. Traditional methods are strong, but new methods can surprise us. Perhaps I've been too focused on tradition. He gestured to her blade. Will you teach me about your process? I want to understand how you created that weapon. Smiled, yes, I'll teach anyone who wants to learn. The crowd's cheering intensified. Looked around the arena, seeing faces of every species, all reacting to what they had witnessed. This was more than just a duel. This was a moment of change. Over the following weeks, everything shifted. Became not just a celebrity, but a teacher. She proposed a new class to the Institute's administration, adaptive weapon smithing. It would combine traditional forging methods from all species with new techniques, including bioforging. The council approved it immediately. Students lined up to join, even enrolled, bringing with him a dozen students who wanted to learn, and were there from the first day, and several joined to see how bioforging might work with their gaseous forms. The class became one of the most popular at the Institute. Military contracts came in from governments across the galaxy. They all wanted to study this blade to understand its properties, to see if the technique could be adapted. Negotiated carefully. She would share her knowledge, but only for defensive applications. She would help create new materials, but not weapons of war. One evening, 3 months after the duel, stood in her lab with Master. He had come to examine the latest results of her research. She had been working on variations of her original blade, trying different biomaterials, different treatment methods. You have changed this institute, Master said. In 300 years, I have never seen innovation like this. I just used what my people have always used, replied. Creativity, stubbornness, the willingness to try something everyone else thinks is impossible. Is that the secret to humanity? Master asked. Stubbornness. Laughed, part of it. But I think the real secret is that we've always seen potential where others see only problems. Our ancestors looked at wild wolves and saw dogs. They looked at wild grass and saw wheat. They looked at stone and saw tools. They looked at fire and saw civilization. She picked up her blade, the one she had forged from flesh, the one that had changed everything. We looked at monster meat and saw a weapon, not because we're cruel, not because we're desperate, but because we see possibility everywhere. We see life as something that can be shaped, guided, improved. Master was quiet for a moment. Then he said, that ability may be humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Every species brings strength or intelligence or longevity, but you bring something rarer. You bring the vision to see what could be and the courage to make it real. Thought about her grandmother, about the frontier colony where she grew up, about all the humans who had ever looked at something impossible and decided to try anyway. That's what we do, she said simply. We forge the impossible. Later that night, stood on the observation deck with and, looking out at the stars. The 3 humans, small and seemingly fragile compared to so many other species, but no longer underestimated. So what's next? Asked. You've revolutionized weaponsmithing, beaten the class champion, started a new field of study. What does the great do for an encore? Smiled. I heard about a species that produces a biological polymer stronger than any synthetic material, and I was thinking about what would happen if we combined that with crystal growth techniques. Laughed, of course you were. You know what the best part is, said, looking out at the infinite stars. Somewhere out there, there's something no one has ever thought to try, something impossible, something that everyone will say can't be done. And you're going to do it, finished. We're going to do it, corrected. That's the other human secret. We do impossible things together. The 3 of them stood in comfortable silence, looking out at a galaxy that had just learned what humanity could do when someone told them something was impossible. They had learned that humans didn't accept limitations. They didn't see barriers. They saw opportunities. Somewhere out there, new challenges waited. new materials to discover, new techniques to develop, new impossibilities to forge into reality. And humanity, stubborn and creative and endlessly optimistic, was ready to meet them all.